Hi, everybody, and welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds, a comics loving edition. I'm already seeing some wonderful reactions out there, so I'll just send that back. Um, Delighted to be talking with Comics Mastermind, I think is the way that I'm going to say this. Charlie McElvy. Charlie, thank you for jumping in and thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Jason. I'm super happy to be here.
My pleasure. My pleasure to have you. Thank you for saying yes. I've heard wonderful things about you. I think that the first work of yours that I became acquainted with was Spider-Squirrel, which I love. I love that combination. I love the classic superhero sort of take that's there. Of course, you have Milestone,
Mhm.
as well as WatchGuard. And
Definitely.
so, yeah, we'll talk about those and talk about some of the good things I've heard about you as well from other creators in the world of comics. Scott Fogg, I believe, being one of those.
I love Scott. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
he's definitely one of my he's a brother. I love him.
yeah. And Mayday Trip, I think, has
Yeah.
also mentioned you. Yeah. So curious about, first of all, what's connected you to this world of comics and comics creation.
Yeah, great. I mean, it's probably no different than anybody else, my age, which I'm pretty old. Um, when I was a kid, we had action figures, whether it's G.I. Joe or Star Wars or He-Man or whatever. We played and we played and He-Man, for those of you who don't know, He-Man used to come with these little mini comics. That was certainly an intro.
Mm-hmm.
But my real introduction to comics came one day when my Meemaw took me to a local 7-Eleven in Norfolk, Virginia, and this cover jumped out at me, and I had to have it because it was Skeletor holding a power sword aimed at Superman, and Superman was attacking He-Man, and it's like, and the Grayskull, Castle Grayskull's in the background, and this is the yellow cover. It was DC Comics Presents number 46.
Mm-hmm.
I don't still have it. I wish I did. I have considered rebuying like a slabbed version just for like posterity. Um, but it was a great book. So that was my gateway drug, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then I started taking my own money, a little change and stuff like that, and going over to that same 7-Eleven. I was maybe 8 or 9, and I walked that 2 miles um, through the city to the same 7-Eleven, and I bought DC Who's Who's, like, and I still have all of my original Who's Who's. I bought every one that came out, and every month I went back looking for more. So obviously preceding comic shops proliferation. So that was where I bought. That was my intro to comics. I mean, simple as that.
Love it, love it. Yeah, yeah. And I think folks that are into this world of comics, we can point back to like our first issue. And usually, if folks are about probably the same age as the two of us, that has something to do with a spinner rack or a magazine stand somewhere. There's some kind of story, some kind of connection there. So, I was also a DC Comics and He-Man fan growing up. So, yeah. So curious about, I mentioned Spider-Squirrel, Milestone, WatchGuard. Curious about how these creative worlds have come to be. So sort of this journey from you as the reader to now making and sort of collaborating with others to make these fictional worlds.
Yeah, that's again, probably not dissimilar from a lot of folks. Start as a fan reader, and in high school or junior high or middle school, even elementary school, you're drawing your favorite heroes, and sometimes you're creating your own. And I know my best friend of now, gosh, 36 years now, I'm showing my age. He and I used to draw. We would trace over pictures from Marvel universes and DC Who's Who's, whatever looked good, dynamic poses and stuff like that. And then we would just get the outline of the character and the musculature, and then we just start snapping pieces on. So we started drawing our own, character designs, and so it started there. But really getting into the publication world today, it kind of comes from some of that. I started creating a bunch of characters. The WatchGuard was born from this. I started creating a bunch of characters. I started creating a character Bible. I was working with, Marvel and DC Comics artists, and actually Sean Isaacs, who is now a DC. He's on Green Arrow right now. Sean's been in Marvel and DC for a long time, but Sean and I met through this process. He did about gosh, of the 44 characters, he did at least a quarter of them, probably more than that. And he co-designed with me. So Xion helped birth my world with me. But I didn't really have an audience. This is before Kickstarter. So I didn't know how to build an audience. I was like, so I had to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
Kickstarter did come about when I was making this book. And so I realized crowdfunding is a thing, and I gave it a shot, failed the first time, and realized I really need to fully establish an audience. And so I created the WatchGuard source book, which WatchGuard being the linchpin character set, and then the other 40 odd characters around it, worked with some gaming folks who created stats for Mutants and Masterminds second edition at the time, and got the license to do that from the folks over at Green Ronin Publishing, and produced the WatchGuard source book. Well, then I went out and threw it on Amazon and started selling it, and it actually unintentionally got nominated for 2 awards. I wasn't going for awards, but it was nice. I won one of those 2, but it gave me the kind of the street cred, if you would. And since it was
Mm-hmm.
superheroes, I realized I could probably carry some of that over to now publishing comics. And so I built my audience there. I found them there, and then I brought them with me into now my first successful Kickstarter for comic books, and that was where the WatchGuard came from. So that's WatchGuard story, and then kind of got I got a little disillusioned with publishing. I wasn't sure I wanted to do that, and I didn't really. If you've read WatchGuard, you know it's not my best work. I tell people all the time, you can have it. Like, just you don't have to buy it, just take it. But joking aside, I realized that my heart wasn't all into that, and so I waited to find that dream project, that project that really I could put my passion into, put myself into. And when I went on American Ninja Warrior, as I was getting ready for the show and stuff like that, I had a persona, and I'd created the Spider-Squirrel persona. For me. And I realized someone said it might have been Ray Anthony Height. It's like, that'd make a cool superhero. And so
Mm-hmm.
I started working together, and then Vito Del Sante, I was friends with him, and the 3 of us kind of created what is now the definitive version of Spider-Squirrel's costume. So really fun. And then from there, everything else is kind of really pouring out. So I feel like, having Spider-Squirrel and Trash Panda as my anchors, not unlike Spider-Man for Marvel, I guess. And then spinning out of that, even though it's a shared universe, though, nothing's really super dependent on anything else. And so folks like Milestone don't like Spider-Squirrel, or vice versa. I mean, it's entirely possible. I think I've crossed over most of my audience to both, because they appeal
Mm-hmm.
differently to different folks. But either way, there we are. I mean, that's kind of the whole story in a quick nutshell.
Love it, love it. And I think the first time I saw that costume for Spider Squirrel was at Heroes Con somewhere, um, on some banner or something, and I was like, I have to read that book. So yeah, it definitely has those classic feels, and you do some really interesting work with it. And you also have, is it Xion Studios? Is that the name of the company that you're overseeing?
Correct. So Xion is the studio, the masthead, if you will, of all my publication stuff. In 2024, I will make some small changes to that, and folks who follow my Substack will see it first. But yeah, there's some fun changes, and DC Stolpner, who has been one of the key artists for Spider Squirrel for me, he did all the movie parody covers, and he did the first issue and a half interior art. But DC's helped me redesign some things, and yeah, that'll be coming soon.
Very cool, very cool. So curious, we were talking about Scott Fogg, and curious about some of the warmest collaborations, the best collaborations you've had, which I think you've been speaking to a little bit, as well as anybody else in the industry that you'd like to sort of shine a light on as well.
Man, I feel like I have lived a super charmed life, in comics and otherwise. I don't know if I could have enough time to talk about all the wonderful, warm adventures I've had together. I mean, I love working with Scott. Scott's such a sweet dude and such a great creator, and he's just, and we're both fathers of adoptive daughters, and so we bonded at that, and we have a book coming out called The Fundamentals that Scott's writing and co-creating, that is really it's an adoption story as much as anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I love working with Scott. Working with Justin Shepard and Mayday. Mayday's awesome. I love their work. Gosh, Vito, I work with Vito on the regular. Dean Haspel has been fun to work with. I love
Mm-hmm.
Dean. We actually boosted up this year at Baltimore together. We were at the same table at the Ringo Awards together, and I just absolutely love Dean. And he co-created some characters, or a character for Xion Studios. Man, I can just go right down the list, whether it's Eric Bennett or I feel bad because I want to name everybody.
Yes,
So
yeah,
you worked
yeah.
with me. Chances are I loved it. I feel like my collaborators have and co-creators have been just everyone across the board has been wonderful to work with. We're doing our first mature audiences book next year, and working with Chris Moses and Anthony Stokes has been a dream. Those guys work fast, they're hungry, and they put out first passes are great. I mean, they obviously
Hmm.
everything needs edits, but I'm loving that. I just started working with Travis Gibb. Travis dropped a little dime on me last night, or night before. Said, "Hey, look," and the script was starting for the book that we're working on together. And so next year, I think we're going to see even more of the collaborations. Spider-Squirrel is a collaborative book on its own because a lot of indie creators got to write my character in their universe with their characters and their art teams.
Hmm.
That was a really fun experiment. In fact, that was one of those things. Mark Wade, I gave him a copy of the book, and he's like, "This sounds like my cup of tea."
Hmm.
And so, hopefully, Mark, hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was your cup of tea. But yeah, I mean, I think that energy comes out in the product because not only am I passionate about the product and getting something fun out for the readers, but I'm passionate about my collaborators, and that passion is always returned. Everyone has just been fantastic. So, um, I know that wasn't the answer. You probably wanted me to pick and choose a few of
No,
them. I
no,
didn't name
I
drop
think
a
that's
few
great.
folks, but yeah.
Now, I recognize that as being one of the challenging parts of that question is that if you leave somebody out, it's not as though you're saying, "Oh no, no." So love that. I love that. And I think the final question that I had, there was something else on my mind right there, but we'll come back to that if it comes back to my head. Um, just thinking about either go-to convention spaces for you, next creative steps. You mentioned some things happening in 2024, as well as anything in terms of where people can go to find out more. You mentioned the Substack. So sort of those next steps and visits, sort of question.
Yeah. Um, yeah, there's a lot going on. I actually have decided that we were going to put out another Kickstarter this year, and I decided to stop because I do want to do a little bit of reinvention. I think I'm at a point. There's this inflection point in publishing where you have an established audience and an established brand, but it's not. There's something missing. Like, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
it's ephemeral. Like, you can't really get your hands on it. You can't feel it, but you know it. And so I decided to put a stop on Kickstarters for now because I really want to focus on the rebranding. I am building Kickstarters right now. I actually have in fact, before we launched this Zoom, I was on Kickstarter updating a new campaign for next year for that mature audiences book I referenced, which is out in you can go find it if you follow me anywhere on Twitter or Instagram. You can see pictures of it.
Mhm.
I'm really excited about that book. But yeah, next year I want to do more conventions. Baltimore's a mainstay. I was a guest this year and loved it. I'm pressing hard to go for the Ringos and get a nomination this year because I think after experiencing the Ringos and enjoying the dinner and the camaraderie of fellow creators and stuff like that, I realized I want to get up there and tell my Mike story, and I have a
Mhm.
Mike Ringo
Mhm.
story that just it warms the heart. So I'll share it when I'm on stage, um, either hosting or presenting or taking an award. Um, but um, but yeah, that's next year. I mean, that's something I want to do. I also want to revisit Heroes. I haven't been to Heroes in a while. That banner you referenced, I still have that banner.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it'd be nice to put that back up there. Uh, and um, and I want to do more collaboration. I think the big thing for me is I am enjoying the publishing kind of. So Dean says he says you're like the Stan Lee of indie comics, and he doesn't mean like I'm Stan Lee. What he means is like the energy and the passion and the drive and this I want to create this world. And so while it's a compliment, it's not the compliment I think people think it is. It's he's not saying anything praise wise about my creativity. He's more just talking about the energy. So I want to take that energy and I want to continue to push that forward and really drive audiences to a fuller experience, a multimedia experience to some extent. We're working with Mikey Ruckus. If you watch wrestling at all, AEW wrestling, he does most of the music, if not all of the music, for AEW. Mikey's a friend, and we're working on a track together for one of the books. He and I collaborated on the Spider-Squirrel theme. It's out there somewhere. Some people have it, and you can certainly get it on my website. And really, just follow me on Substack. I think that's the easiest thing to do. Is I try not to bog down the Kickstarters with studio updates. People are back to Kickstarter and they want updates on that book or that product or whatever. So I try not to glut that. So yeah, go to my Substack. It's pretty easy. It's just charliemckelvy.substack.com, or just go to, at Charlie McElvy on Substack. You'll find me. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to tell. Look for the rebranding, look for some new stuff. I'm updating the website, and we got a lot more Kickstarters coming next year.
Wonderful, wonderful. And the thing that I was going to say came back to my mind, which is you mentioned Dean Haspiel, and I love his work as well. So wonderful to hear about that collaboration. So that was the thing that sort of bubbled up. Yeah. I was like, what was that?
Yeah, Dean's fantastic. And I didn't realize, Dean and I just became friends, and through Vito and through other things, and Dean liked what I was doing. I didn't realize how deep, like I've got the Red Hook over here, and I'm pointing to my bookshelf. And I got my Billy Dog, my latest Billy Dog, from Dean. So I'm a Dean fan too, but I didn't realize how deep Dean's hooks went. I'm in Baltimore, and I'm sitting down to dinner with Howard Chaykin, and so now I'm like, I'm friends with Howard. This is great, and then the sons, Wheezy, and happy birthday, Louise. Louise and Walter are just beautiful, amazing people, and we took to each other really, really well, and I love that. And so my wife had a great time hanging out with Louise. And so because Dean did all this stuff, I didn't realize Dean knew all these people, and so he is a wonderful human being. He's a fantastic creator, and he is just one of the coolest, funnest guys to hang out with. I really enjoy Dean a lot.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. I love to hear the positive words, the positive collaborations, and never heard anything ill of the Simonsons as well. So it's always good to celebrate them.
I know when I was talking to Walter, and he was telling stories, and he dropped the F-bomb, and I was like, I didn't expect it at all. So it was the funniest thing, and he could see my shocked face, and he's like, "What? An old man can't say these things?" And so he called himself that. I didn't. But yeah, no, they are beautiful, beautiful people, and I'm looking forward to hanging out with Walter and Louise. Actually, I want to go up and hopefully take them to dinner at some point with my wife and kids when we visit up that area. So
wonderful, wonderful. Well, safe travels. And enjoy time with the Simonsons. My goodness. And hopefully, I hope to catch you at Heroes Con again. And I've heard such great things about Baltimore. I'm going to have to make my way to Baltimore at some point as well.
I love Heroes, but I mean, no disrespect to Shelton or anybody. Baltimore is my home. I love that show. It is one of the first big shows I ever did, and it consistently just been one of the most enjoyable shows ever. Hands down. But I absolutely love Heroes. They're like this for me. So hoping to make it back this year.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. And thank you, Charlie, for talking with me. Always glad to talk with you. Anything that we've missed in our brief chat and brief episode that you want to make sure to mention?
I can't think of anything. I just look forward to, if feedback, anybody who's read the books, by all means, please reach out to me on social media. I am super accessible, and I want to hear, what you like, love, hate. All feedback is good feedback, right? So it just makes for better products, better collaborations, and hopefully more entertainment for everybody.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I will link the Substack, and I'll also drop in an image of Spider-Squirrel either right about at the end of our talk or at the beginning, or maybe both. It can bookend. So thank you so much for talking with me, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.